Spoiler warning for Starfield's main story and DLC. Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to another Starfield challenge run. In my last run, I attempted to beat Fallout New Vegas' very hardcore difficulty with only energy weapons, which was a blast, and today I want to tackle something more precise as I attempt to beat Starfield as a sniper. Before we get into the run, let's lay down some ground rules. I can only use scoped weapons to deal damage. I must play the entire game on the settings I show later for difficulty. I cannot use any bugs or glitches to exploit the game on purpose. I cannot use console commands for anything but fixing bugs, and I will not be using any mods. With the rules laid out, I want to go ahead and talk a bit about Starfield itself since it's been a while since I've played it. Starting with the news that there is a massive new update and DLC for the game. The update is called Free Lanes, and it adds a full new system for difficulty settings, and I'm going to go ahead and show my settings on screen now in case you want to follow along and use the same ones in your own run. I did try and be fair. I sort of set it up with a focus on making the run difficult without making it super tedious or just annoying. For example, I set the enemy damage to max while I left my damage normal. I could have nerfed my own damage, but that just would have made all of the encounters more of a bullet sponge situation than anything else, and that's what I'm trying to avoid here. Past that, there's a ton of new changes with this free update that include cruise mode, which is a new way to travel in your ships around the solar systems, new locations and points of interest, new weapon, armor, and ship mods called X-Tech mods, new stories and side quests, a planet-side vehicle called the Moon Jumper, outpost improvements, new recruitable crew members, and improvements to the Starborn New Game Plus system. Past that, there's a whole new DLC called Terran Armada which you can pick up, which adds yet more content, including a new storyline, side quests, new faction dynamics, ship parts, a new companion, new cockpit, weapons, and much more. I won't be showing off everything that's new in Starfield in this video, but I'll try and point out some of the new features as I go, and if you want to try out the update or DLC yourself, it's already live on PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC, and the Free Lanes update is free for all players, so if you already have Starfield, you can check out all of that new content right now just by getting back on the game. Also, thank you to Bethesda for sponsoring this video, and let's jump into the run where I find myself riding an elevator down a mineshaft alongside my boss Lynn and my co-worker Heller. I then spend a while walking through the mine and even get to laser some rocks myself before being sent off to touch a really curvy piece of metal all alone, and when I do, I end up having a vision of some sort. Before waking up in the medbay and creating my character, who has a rather fitting name of Lenny Longshot Lester, and I take the Cyber Runner background for an early head start on the stealth perk alongside hero worship, introvert, and neon street kid traits, and then after that I head outside with Lynn and Heller, and a ship lands bringing a man named Barrett, who is a part of a group of explorers known as Constellation. Unfortunately, he brought some friends with him in the form of the Crimson Fleet, which is a group of pirates who attack right after he lands. I can't really do anything about them, so I decide to implement an old minigame from my Skyrim videos, so enjoy another segment of Where's Willow as you try and find me in the middle of this chaotic firefight. Also, firefight lasted about 20 minutes, so yeah, this was a really long time. That's why I have so many shots of it. Anyways, when all of the pirates are finally killed by the friendly NPCs, Barrett gives me his ship and his robot Vasco and tells Vasco to take me back to the Constellation headquarters with the artifact because I had that vision and I'm now part of the mystery itself, and they're trying to solve that mystery which revolves around the artifacts. Vasco and I enter orbit over Vectera where we were mining, and one of the pirate ships shows up trying to kill me, which introduces me to ship combat where I have to fight back and end up destroying a total of 3 Crimson Fleet ships while Vasco tells me what I need to do to fight in the ship, kind of just a little tutorial area. And after that, it's decided that we need to go to the raider base in this system in order to stop them from chasing us. This presents a small problem as I'm still unarmed. I don't have a weapon with a scope, so I cannot fight, but I travel to the pirate base anyways as I kinda have to. Luckily, I do have Vasco as a companion, which means I'm not completely defenseless, but this ends up being the most frustrating thing I think I'm gonna do in 2026, as it takes me over an hour to clear this dungeon, which is supposed to take like 5 minutes max, mainly because Vasco is the most passive companion I've ever seen in a video game. I legit have to run past enemies getting shot at just to get him to approach them, and then I have to run away again and hide so the enemies don't kill me because I'm standing out in the open behind them. Anyways, he is woefully inaccurate at anything but point blank, and then at point blank he's doing melee attacks which are admittedly very, very strong. I don't know why I'm saying admittedly so many times, but you know, whatever, we're getting through this. Anyways, he does end up slowly but surely, painstakingly slowly clear out the entire base for me, which was not fun, but that is done. I make my way outside and run into the leader of this group of the Crimson Fleet, and I go through the persuasion minigame, and thankfully I managed to get a critical success, letting me avoid the fight with him entirely before leaving the planet and making my way to the Alpha Centauri star system, where I land at the city of New Atlantis. I speak with this technician once I land and then start selling all of my loot to this kiosk here before realizing that they ran out of credits and I need to reload because I sold them a bunch of stuff for free. After clearing the kiosk of all of its credits, I need to go ahead and make my way towards the headquarters of Constellation, the Astral Lodge, but before that I go ahead and make my way to the nearby gun shop where I purchase the first weapon of the run, an old Earth hunting rifle, mainly just because it was the cheapest thing that had a scope on it. I also buy some ammo for it, and then head to the lodge and speak with the group there, eventually placing the artifact on this table alongside 2 others. They start floating around in this light show kind of thing in the middle of the room, and then Sarah, the leader of the group, basically voluntells me that we're going together to speak with Vanguard to try and track down another artifact together, because apparently there's a Vanguard soldier who has one and he's from Mars. I spend a bit upgrading my new weapon with the workbench down below before we head over to the Vanguard office and ask about his patrol, and make our way to Mars, where we talk with the bartender who says that he hasn't been around or checked in when he normally would. So we continue following his patrol route and make our way to this satellite array where there's a bunch of Varun Zealot ships that are apparently hostile. So I'm walked through, stealthing in space as I power down almost all of my systems and slowly creep my way to the array, using it to find out that the Vanguard soldier went to a nearby shipyard that's been abandoned near Earth. So I dock with the shipyard and start the first proper combat section of this run as I start fighting through spacers, which are basically just illegal salvagers, and a mercenary group called Eclectic. Man, I don't know why I had so much trouble with that. Anyways, I die a lot, mainly from me getting blindsided by enemies. Basically, any enemy can kill me in just a handful of shots due to the damage settings, so if I walk into a room and just miss one of them, it's a death sentence. Eventually, I adjust to how I need to play this more slowly and meticulously as I start clicking on heads from a longer range and using stealth to my advantage, which turns out to be super effective. Legit, most of the enemies are able to be killed in a single shot as long as I land a headshot from stealth. I slowly progress through the dungeon, eventually finding an audio log from the soldier, taunting the enemies to come find him at Neptune. So naturally, I leave and make my way to Neptune where I find his ship, but it starts fighting me. He contacts us through the comm and tells us that the ship is taken over and hijacked by more eclectic mercenaries, and I have to fight the ship, disabling it and boarding it before killing the mercenaries on board and saving the Vanguard soldier named Moira? I don't know how to say that. that name. Anyways, I offer him a spot on my crew before taking his artifact. I then return to the lodge, adding the artifact, before Sarah offers to join me again as a companion. I politely decline her and get a few more quests, which involve checking on Barrett, heading up to the constellation satellite called the Eye, and meeting with a man named Sam Coe to hunt for another artifact in the Freestar Collective. I then head off to do some more shopping, and by shopping I mean selling everything I gathered on the last quest to just barely be able to afford another gun. This time, the A99 Marksman, which is a semi-automatic scoped gun with a legendary modifier of Hitman, which gives it 15% bonus damage when aiming down sights, which I imagine will be one of the most useful X-Tech mods throughout this run. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. The X-Tech modification I mentioned, it's kind of like a legendary system. You get bonus effects with X-Tech mods that are unique, and you can actually take pretty much any weapon you find, any weapon you pick up off of a random enemy, no matter how weak it is, you can actually just take it to a weapons workbench, spend some credits upgrading its quality level, and start rolling for these X-Tech mods, and I will show that off again later with the A99, but I just wanted to let you know that's one of the new features of the update, and it's really cool to basically be able to take any weapon that you like and turn it into a really stacked legendary weapon. Anyways, while buying the gun, I have this adoring fan approach me, and he offers to join my crew. He might be a little bit annoying, but he made me chuckle, so I go ahead and assign him to my ship before heading off to find Barrett as I return to Vectera and find Lynn there alone. Apparently the pirates kidnapped both Barrett and Heller, and I have to fix this computer to find a message that gives us coordinates of where they went. I follow the coordinates after Lynn deciphers them, and I also recruit Lynn to my crew. I then make my way to this random moon where I find a crashed ship and a drugged up wounded Heller, and after a long fun conversation with him, he gives me another recording from Barrett, which gives me another direction to go. Following Barrett's audio breadcrumbs, I make my way to a Crimson Fleet base in a nearby system. Once there, I start fighting through all of the pirates, using a nearby cliff to snipe down at them, and one in particular ends up taking a ton of shots at long range, but besides that, I kind of just methodically dismantle them before making my way inside the base itself, where I do much the same, but more chaotically as I'm in close quarters, and it just ends up being a firefight with the pirates, holding Barrett hostage, and over the course of about 5 seconds, I eliminate all of them and speak with Barrett before returning to the lodge, where we all have a big reunion. I then head over to the Eye, a space station run by Constellation, and a Russian man named Vladimir. He asks me to go check on another Constellation member named Andreja, who is off hunting down 2 artifacts. I start off by heading to this cave that is surprisingly kind of empty. I just sort of show up and find an artifact in it, and when I grab it, I have that same vision from before. I then make my way to a second location for another artifact, and this time it's in an abandoned mine where I find Andreja inside as she kills 2 Varun zealots before pointing her gun at me. I introduce myself and then proceed to turn this mine into a horror movie as I go on an absolute murder spree using sneak attacks to one-shot almost everyone inside. I have also leveled up a bunch at this point, and I have rank 2 of the stealth skill, which is making life a lot easier. I think upgrading the Old Earth hunting rifle was a good investment as well, as it's given me a hard carry compared to the marksman, as it just sort of reaches that sweet spot between alpha damage and simply being suppressed. It's a huge benefit. Anyways, I go ahead and get another artifact without too much fuss, and have another vision before speaking with Andreja again and heading back to the lodge, but this time I don't complete the quest by turning in the artifacts. I instead just speak with this cowboy, Sam Coe, and his daughter Cora. I agree to head with him out to the capital city of the Freestar Collective, Aquila City, and once I land there, I want to do some prep work before following along Sam Coe in this quest line, so I go ahead and start offloading some loot and think about finding a weapon shop, but I'm sidetracked by a bank robbery of all things. I speak to the sheriff, and he offers to let me be a hostage negotiator, but unfortunately Lenny isn't very convincing. The bank robbers refuse to let the hostages go, which means that the sheriff is going to let me go in with a bit more violence as I head inside the bank and make a withdrawal from the mortal coil, removing about 5 souls from it and saving the hostages in the process before getting my reward and heading to the 2 gun shops here in the city, where I restock on ammo and get yet another new rifle called the Head Ranger, which I think think is going to be one of the bigger alpha damage weapons I have moving forward. Hey, real quick, editor's note. Yeah, this thing does not get used very much. It is very good on alpha damage, but I was just not interested in investing a whole bunch into it, and it's not suppressed like my other weapons, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. It does get some heavy use later on, but for a long time you are barely gonna see this thing pop up, just letting you know. I then meet up with Sam, and after a lot of talking and going to the bank, I orchestrate a little co-family reunion between his father and his daughter, and we get our hands on Great Granddaddy's map, which points us to a Shaw Gang hideout, which should be the location of another artifact. Naturally, I head over there, nearly dying to the local wildlife on the way, before taking up a position on a cliffside where I start the process of leaving the criminals with an open-mindedness that leaves no room for doubt as I click on their heads. The combat takes a long while to get through as I'm playing it very slowly, I don't want to die, and eventually I manage to make my way inside this cave and find the artifact, and when I go to leave, the leader of the gang, a woman named Shaw, rather fittingly for Shaw's gang, shows up, and I proceed to die to her and the Ashta that attack right after we talk, over and over. It's a real pain, but eventually I manage to pass a persuasion check after a few times failing it, and I help the gang fight off the Ashta before returning the artifacts to the lodge, and after placing all of the artifacts, I refuse to participate in a philosophy discussion because I just feel Lenny isn't really a thinking man. Next up, I need to go ahead and speak with Vlad again, but I make my way back to Aquila City first, where I meet with this guy trying way too hard to be edgy. His name is Agent Number 1, or as he likes to be called, No One, and long story short, he's part of a group that contacted me earlier. It's a group of bounty hunters called the Trackers Alliance, and they send me off to do a bounty to see if I'm good enough to join their ranks. I'm joined by one of their members, an agent called Roach, and he sends me off to go ahead and look around the city using my scanner to try and find someone who will lead us to a bigger bounty. I eventually do. His name is Adrastos, I think. I don't really know how to say it. They say it multiple times, but it sounds different every time. Either way, we kidnap him and have him lead us to a chop shop where our bounty target, a man named Hannibal, should be. We have Astrados get us into the chop shop by tricking them using the comm system, and Doc, where I go into my first ever 0G section of the run. The combat here is actually really fun, but also very tense, as I can't rely on sneaking anymore, as you can't sneak in 0G combat, so I'm instead forced to play a much more, I was gonna say gun and run, or run and gun I guess is what I meant, but it's more like float and shoot. Have to play this float and shoot style, and it's a lot of close calls and me nearly dying over and over and over, but I managed to clear the entire station without actually dying, and then I use this missile pod attached to a ship and run a test which blows a hole in the station that allows me to eventually run into Hannibal, but it turns out that this Hannibal's not the real Hannibal, and the real Hannibal is the guy we kidnapped, and he steals our ship. This leaves us with a junker that he gave us, as well as a bunch of loot. I kill fake Hannibal and take the loot, and we return to Aquila City, where I report my failure to Agent 1, but Roach vouches for me, telling him I'm tracker material, and then he asks me to pick a call sign, and I just leave. Because I was in a voice call with a friend at the time, and he told me that if I do the Mantis quest line, I can get the Mantis call sign, and I kind of really wanted that, and we also want to see what happens if we just leave Agent 1 hanging while we go do that quest, and then come back. Like, will it let me get the call sign? Either way, I head over and start the Mantis quest, which involves me fighting through this very intense dungeon where I have to kill a ton of spacers, robots, and do some difficult puzzles. It's honestly a blast. I have so much fun going through this. The combat is challenging and difficult, the puzzles are fun, even if the letters on the floor puzzle is incredibly finicky and those turrets are so trigger happy. Seriously, how did the Mantis do this like over and over and over? Did they just avoid this? Because one wrong step and you're dead, and it's just insane. Either way, that was the low light of it, but the rest of it was fun, and the robot combat in particular is what I want to highlight, as I die multiple times trying to clear them because, well, they have a lot of armor and I don't have pretty much any armor penetration, so their high health pool, armor, and everything else means they are very, very well handled for dealing with me. But I find a new strategy of basically running away and waiting for just one of the robots to follow me so I can isolate them. That way I turn it into a bunch of 1v1s instead of fighting multiple of them at a time. I complete the dungeon, getting the Mantis legendary armor, which I plan to use for the rest of the run, as well as the Razor Leaf ship. I then return to Agent Number 1 and pick the Mantis call sign, which is quite funny that I just left for like a couple of days, came back with this new weird armor, and select a weird call sign. Anyways, I forgot that the other quests that I wanted to do for the Trackers Alliance are a creations item that I haven't bought yet, so this was mainly just a fun side quest for me, and I decide to get back to the main story as I return to the Eye, where Vladimir sends me off to find a new anomaly related to the artifacts. I land on this planet and I'm a bit confused on what I'm supposed to be doing and spend 10 minutes running around looking at random gravity distortions on the planet until realizing that the scanner is actually visually glitching out and I need to follow the glitching whichever direction it's leading me. This does lead me to a temple where I do this little mini game of floating around into these sparkling lights a whole bunch of times in 0G before getting this ability that creates a field of 0G which stuns enemies and allows me to deal with them without them fighting back, which is really nice. I then return to the lodge and show off my new ability before Walter asks me to join him in one of my favorite quests, which is the one where we head to Neon City, a city of crime and stealing and corruption and very just dystopian coded. It's very much so cyberpunk themed almost. Anyways, we're planning to buy an artifact off of some dude who probably stole it from someone else, and I do a lot of running around and talking with people until eventually finding the seller in this club and buying the artifact from him before the company that he stole it from seizes my ship, so we have to infiltrate that company's office, which involves being led around by Walter's wife, and eventually getting into a combat section where I start fighting through his security, which is a relatively short and pretty easy combat section, honestly. Mostly just consists of me getting stealth attack headshots, which kill enemies instantaneously. I then have a confrontation with the CEO of the rival company, where I talk him into letting us go by convincing him to make a business deal with Walter, and then I go ahead and set the guy who stole the artifact from him free before making my way back to my ship and entering orbit, where I find a ship named Helix is waiting for me, and apparently it's unlike anything else we've seen in the galaxy. It hails me, and the captain of the ship demands that I give him the artifact. I try and power up my grav drive and escape, but end up dying to him before I can get away, and on my next attempt I manage to get back to the lodge, where Walter and I report to Constellation. After discussing it for a while, Vladimir gives me a couple more artifact locations which I head to, and they are very similar to all of the previous ones, consisting of me fighting through either pirates or spacers until I find the artifact. It's a lot of fun, and I'm getting a lot of experience to pour mostly into the ballistics, rifle certification, and sniper skills, but they aren't too notable because, as I said, it's just more of the same that I've already done with other artifact quests. I then return to the lodge and get told to go to the Eye, where I spend a while helping the Constellation crew upgrade the station itself, before Vladimir sends me along with Sam to go steal an artifact from one Petrov. He's a collector running a party barge called the Scow, and he has the artifact but is completely unwilling to sell it to us, so we have to steal it from him. I make my way there, dock, head through his security, and persuade him to show me the artifact before stealing it from him. I then shoot him as he gets hostile, and he immediately gives up, letting me leave without fighting his security. I then make my way back to the lodge, only to find out that one of the Starborn, named the Hunter, is coming for the artifacts and has already attacked the Eye. Barrett is apparently hurt, but I decide to stick with the artifacts and help defend them from the Hunter, as I don't think I can get to the Eye in time. The Hunter then shows up a little while later, grabbing Walter and holding him at a gunpoint before just kind of pushing him away without killing him. Was a little silly. I Either way, I start this section where we do a fighting retreat while the others run, and I shoot the hunter while blowing through a ton of ammo until I reach my ship and head up to the eye to find Barrett dead. After checking on everyone else, I decide to leave the artifacts on my ship and then return to the lodge where Mateo asks me to go talk to a man named Keeper Aquilus because the hunter mentioned something called the Unity and the Keeper preaches about something called the Unity. So I head over and speak with him and go on a long series of conversations and puzzles that culminates in me finding this light puzzle that leads me to a meeting point with the hunter and another starborn called the Emissary, who was apparently the one in the Helix ship from earlier. It's here where they explain that gathering all of the artifacts builds something called the Armillary, which lets one become a starborn by traveling through the Unity, and that starborn can make their way across different universes. They tell me that I should head to Earth's moon and start looking around there for another artifact, and also tell me to go speak with Constellation once more. Oh, they're also going to stop hunting me, at least for a little while, a ceasefire from them, but other starborn might come after me anyways. Also, the A99 Marksman has become the most important weapon in my arsenal, as it's easily my most efficient damage-wise, and has a high rate of fire for a semi-automatic weapon, as well as a decent magazine capacity while being suppressed. I also like the sight and the scope, so I decide to upgrade it using credits and some X-Tech, which is a new resource added by the Free Lanes update used to roll for these new modifications on your weapons, armor, and ships, and you can find it throughout the world on enemies, and you can mine it from outposts to roll another legendary modifier on top of the Hitman one it already has. I go through a couple of rolls and eventually land on keeping the Extended Mag modification, which gives a 50-round magazine without making the reload any longer, which is awesome. I then speak with Constellation and get some more artifact leads and start following them. The first is business as usual, but the second lead gets me the Entangled quest, which is a really difficult combat quest where I have to jump between two universes over and over, fighting robots and alien scorpions. I'm just gonna give you all a montage of it because it was really tense and I nearly die many times. Anyways, at the end of the quest, I go ahead and complete it, picking to stay in the universe where Raphael is the sole survivor of the laboratory because he needs my help more, and I don't think it destroyed the other universe. That's not what they were like trying to indicate it did, but I don't think it did. Either way, I don't know, somebody smarter in the comments go explain that to me, even though it's all just sci-fi made up BS. Either way, I'm gonna go ahead and move on where I talk about us going to Earth's moon, where I find out about a launch site in Florida that should have an artifact, so I make my way down to Earth and right over to the launch site with my rover. I make my way up the tower and go through this huge complex, learning how humanity figured out faster than light travel and how it destroyed Earth's gravity, causing the atmosphere to sputter away. I find the artifact and start fighting with random starborn on the way out, which ends up being more difficult than I was expecting, as I end up dying on my first attempt, but on my second attempt, I basically just sneak my entire way back out of here very slowly, as even against starborn, a sneak critical headshot with the Hitman X-Tech mod on the A99 is more than enough to one-shot even strong enemies at this point, which is great news for me. Anyways, I meet up with the Emissary and Hunter outside and choose to side with the Emissary this time, as last time I sided with the Hunter. This unlocks the final quest of the run, but I want to go ahead and check out that new DLC, Terran Armada, first, so I head over to join the search party for a missing cruise liner called the Opulence of the Stars that was attacked by the Terran Armada. I search this asteroid field where they think it'll be and find it before anyone else entering it to find it's a tomb. It's just completely filled with dead people. Everybody on board seems to have died, and it's really Oh man, I almost just said queepy, which What am I, 6? It's really creepy and quiet until I enter the VIP lounge section, where I find that there are a bunch of humanoid robots just slaughtering people. I then get into combat, which is a real pain. The robots are super durable, and I'm honestly underleveled for this. They all take multiple shots to weak points to take down, and while I don't end up dying, that's mostly to do with great level design, as there are ample healing supplies scattered throughout the ship, and that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this DLC. It has incredibly difficult combat, but it's not unforgiving, as you can scavenge supplies to keep yourself going, even if you come a little bit unprepared. Anyways, after a long slog of combat, I find myself in this vault and loot it, while a recording of a lady tells me to put this chip into one of the Terran robot frames. I do so, and it stands up, identifying itself as Delta, before agreeing to come with me and help me leave the opulence of the stars if I help it find its creator, the lady who created the ship. Anyways, we then start fighting our way out of the ship, running into the first human enemy, which kind of surprised me, as I was expecting this to be some kind of robot revolution or something, but no. Turns out the robots are actually just controlled by people. Well, not like drones are controlled by people, like they're autonomous, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I go ahead and reach the exit of the ship and encounter a UC Navy soldier who I managed to convince to not kill me and Delta before she tells me to go to a bar in the corner of the galaxy to speak with some people who are running the defense against the Terran Armada. Unfortunately though, there's a Terran station in the system preventing us from grav jumping away, so I have to go deal with that, and this is the first of the DLC's many space combat sections where I have to fight through multiple ships defending the station, and I'm honestly kind of outclassed here. The ships that I'm fighting are much better than me, but I do find a strategy that works after dying many times. Like, legitimately, I have so many recordings of me dying. Either way, the strategy that I find that works is, I'm gonna call it the torpedo strategy, where I full boost, full speed towards an enemy ship like a torpedo and pull away at the last moment, shooting the entire time. This puts me behind the enemy ship, and I'm only exposed to fire while approaching, which is a relatively short period of time. I then cut all of my speed and turn around before they do, and then max out my speed again and just repeat the process, which basically allows me to stay out of the enemy's gun range the entire time I'm doing this, and finish them off one by one. It's really intense and does require a little bit of luck, because if there's more than 2 ships generally, I have to just hope that the other 2 don't, find a way to get behind me. Either way, I go ahead and clear out all of their ships, board the station, and die a ton more times trying to fight through it, as the enemies only need a couple of seconds of clean shots to bring me down, and the biggest issue I run into is there are some very durable robots here that take nearly all 50 rounds from the A99 marksman to bring down for me. I need a lot of time to deal with them, and they don't need much time to deal with me, which is kind of a problem. Eventually, I managed to find a strategy where I use attrition tactics and just sort of hiding a lot, which it's a 0G environment, but you can hide behind cover still, and I basically focus on killing off all of the enemies I can kill in 1 or 2 hits, and leaving the stronger bots alone, just completely avoiding them until they're isolated, and that is much more manageable for me to deal with. I can deal with one really strong enemy, but dealing with one really strong enemy and a whole bunch of small ones at the same time, not really all that doable. Either way, I set the station to self-destruct before heading to New Atlantis so I can buy a new ship, not for combat, but for jump range, as I can't reach the bar with the Razor Leaf. So I buy a Rambler and upgrade it with a bit more fuel storage before making my way over to the bar, where I order a special drink and get to meet with the leaders of a group called Void that is trying to stop the Terran Armada. That station mission I just did was called a Terran Incursion, and there's 3 versions of them, but they are all similar, requiring me to do a combat gauntlet starting with space and continuing inside either a space station or a ship, and I have to do some actions once inside to blow up said station or ship. Next up, I need to do 3 more of these incursions in order to obtain 3 black boxes that Delta can use to triangulate the location of one of their production facilities for the robots, which is where we believe that Roxanne, the creator of Delta, has been kidnapped in order to improve their robots. That's why they attacked the Opulence of the Stars, to kidnap her, and now we need to go get her back because we don't want them making better robots. I go ahead and start working through the incursions, and it's a brutal stretch of combat that I'm going to sum up with a montage as I talk about my thoughts on the DLC. First off, weapons. I don't end up using any in this run, mainly cause I couldn't find the time to get resources to modify them, and I just didn't find one with a scope naturally, but I tried them out after recording and they are all awesome. They have a bunch of really cool animations, the sounds are good, I think there are some solid additions to the game, and they are also, simply put, fun to use in my opinion. Past that, while not directly a result of the Terran Armada DLC, the difficulty sliders have made the combat here so much more fun. I really like the customizability of all of the difficulty. You can choose exactly what you want, and if you make it harder, you get benefited by having more experience. The enemy robot designs are really cool. I really like how humanoid they are. I think Delta is an awesome companion, and he even has this EMP ability after you save Roxanne that allows him to stun the other robots of the Terran Armada, which is a huge boon to any combat situation with them, as he will randomly do a massive, huge AoE stun that buys you a ton of time and breathing space. Past that, overall, a lot of my criticisms from my first challenge run just after launch have been addressed by Bethesda with the Free Lanes update and this DLC. I'm not saying this because I'm sponsored either. I am legitimately surprised with how well Bethesda has done, and it's been a great job to make the game more of what we were expecting, and I really like it a lot more compared to launch, and if you all like this run, I'd be excited to do a few more. So make sure you like the video and leave a comment if you want to see more. Anyways, I managed to grab all 3 black boxes and blow up the 3 Terran incursions before giving them to Delta, where we find the production facility and head there to find Roxanne. When I reach it, I'm a bit surprised that the combat in this dungeon is a lot easier than the previous ones. There's just as many enemies here, but there's 2 reasons I think that this dungeon in particular is easier for me. First, there's the layout. This is an asteroid production facility, meaning that the ranges are a little bit longer, making it more favorable to my playstyle. And also, the robots here are basically handling all of the human enemies, as we find out that Roxanne has incited all of the robots to attack any human that isn't her. The chaos of it all is really working for my favor as I float around in 0G, blasting away at the enemies and making quick progress until I find Roxanne herself, and we go to work sabotaging the facility so it can't be used anymore, culminating in a big firefight where I have to defend the control room while she hacks it. A ton of robots spawn as she's doing so, and I have to fight through it, constantly giving up ground as I run back up towards the door of the control room, doing a bit of a fighting retreat until she manages to finish hacking it and shut down the facility and all of the robots attacking me. Then on our way out, we find an innocent janitor who was killed by the robots, and she has a complete breakdown over this, which I don't understand why. She told the robots to kill any human who isn't her. She didn't program them to only attack combatants or whatever, or armed personnel, so this shouldn't be surprising. Did she think everybody here was a soldier, like a battle-hardened soldier or something? Either way, she has a conniption fit about it. It's whatever, but we go ahead and return to Void, and I'm then sent out to get more black boxes from incursions to find the flagship of the Terran fleet, the Unifier. These 3 incursions turn out to be a completely brutal section, as they're harder than the first 3 and also the hardest I encounter in the entire run, with me dying a few dozen times. I'm not exaggerating, I counted, it was like 31, but it's more of the same. So I'm gonna move past it. Just know that this was absolutely brutal, even though I was just doing the same 3 dungeons again, because because the enemies were somehow more lethal. They would kill me in under a second reliably, so I had to play very, very carefully and also abuse quick saves like they were going out of style. Anyways, with that, we take the black boxes back to Roxanne, who identifies the location of the Unifier, the flagship of the Terran Armada, and it's time to go ahead and do the final space fight and board the Unifier to sabotage and destroy it. I spent hours on this assault. The Terran fleet here is incredibly strong, and they infinitely spawn new ships whenever you destroy one. It consists of you destroying these various shield recharging ships around the Unifier. If you don't do that, the Unifier just can't really be damaged. Its shields just come back instantly. But after you destroy them, you have to attack the Unifier itself. That is where I ran into the actual issue of this run. Any of these ships here I can take on one-on-one. I'm pretty sure I could take on the Unifier one-on-one if I needed to, but the fact that there are so many of them, and even with having some allies here to distract them, if I ever try and focus on the Unifier to damage it enough so I can board, I end up getting one of the other ships on my tail and they kill me because they just have a stronger ship. I tried everything. I had one run where I just tried to kill all of the smaller ships, and that's how I found out that the ships spawn infinitely, because after killing about 20 of them with a bunch of intense high-stakes dogfighting, I looked around and saw another one jumping in and realized that's what was happening. So overall, I basically ran into a situation where my options were to go back and load an earlier save and do some extra side quests for Void, which would increase the fleet strength that's attacking the final fleet battle here, or to spend time leveling up and getting a better ship myself so I can just handle it. Unfortunately, I didn't really have the time to do either of those, but it's not all that bad because now I get to leave you all with a cliffhanger. If you want to see how this entire DLC ends, all you have to do is go check it out yourself. For now, I go ahead and make my way to the Buried Temple for the final quest of the run, where I encounter the Hunter and some other starborn ships in orbit. They basically immediately kill me after a short conversation, but whenever I reload the save, a glitch happens to launch my ship far away from them. So far, in fact, that they aren't even on my scanners, but the emissary spawns in right next to me and starts flying towards them, which is how I know where they are. And while it is a glitch, I didn't do it on purpose, so it doesn't break the rules of the run. I take advantage and go ahead and kill off the starborn ships before focusing on the Hunter, who I force to flee, and he heads back down to the planet, and I start the combat gauntlet of the Buried Temple, which was super fun. Each of the starborn helping the Hunter defend the final artifact have their own gimmick, from needing to be killed multiple times, to raising the dead, to controlling a bunch of robots and turrets. I end up dying only a couple of times, first to the starborn that raises the dead, mainly because I just get a bit too impatient and aggressive. I try and rush him down using the head ranger, but I end up dying. The second time I die in one of the universe hopping sections where I speak with Petrov. Yeah, him and his guards surrounding me just kill me freaking instantly. But on my second attempt, I managed to down him quickly and then run past all of the guards into the little light orbs so I can get back to the normal universe. And overall, this was more fun and challenging than anything else. It wasn't annoying, but it wasn't easy either. It's a nice middle ground. Also, sorta just didn't bring enough ammunition for the A99, so I do a lot of the fighting here with the Head Ranger mostly, and a little bit of the Old Earth hunting rifle, until finally confronting the Hunter, where I fail a persuasion check before absolutely clowning on him, as I basically just take him down in 2 shots over and over and over as we jump from universe to universe, revisiting the greatest hits of the main story, and it was honestly kind of a joke of a fight, but it was fun seeing the whole run summed up through this battle as I finally take down the Hunter and enter the Unity, completing the run while answering the question, can I beat Starfield as a sniper? Yes I can. Though I can't beat Terran Armada, or at least I didn't end up beating Terran Armada. You all are beautiful, and thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome. Thank you to Bethesda for sponsoring this video, and to my channel members and patrons, as their support has been tremendous. Take care of yourself, and this is Willow, signing off.